Rocky Mountain River running through the trees. Daybreak breaking down in Tennessee. Midday sky out in Santa Fe with the sun sinking down over a field of grain. And it's called the land of the brave. The whole world knows our name. One God and 50 states.
Hello and welcome to the Woke is Broke podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Stanko, and we will not be starting off today's episode with any jokes or lighthearted humor or anything like that, because the top story today, the top story this week, hell, maybe even the year, it's a little bit too serious to poke fun at. We're talking nuclear serious. We're talking about Iran being weeks, maybe even days away from having a nuclear weapon. This comes by way of the New York Times. They reported earlier, experts studying new data contained in reports last week by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the United Nations Atomic Inspection Group, say that by enriching nuclear fuel in recent months to near bomb-grade levels, Tehran has gained the capability to produce the fuel needed for a single nuclear warhead within a month or so. Honest to God. I mean, I really haven't seen this covered virtually anywhere. Not on mainstream media, not on independent news outlets, not to any significantly great degree. And I mean, a part of me is shocked by that, and another part of me understands it a little bit, right? Because we have the border crisis, right? We have Biden's tyrannical vaccine mandate, right? We have the $3.5 trillion Democrat spending spree being voted on this week, right? We have the situation in Afghanistan. We have a lot on our plate, don't get me wrong. We have a lot of other fires that we're drawing our attention to, hands down. But this should be able to cut through that noise, right? This math equation should be able to cut through the crap and get everybody's attention. Nuclear Iran plus United States with open borders equals... Anyone? I'll leave you to figure that one out. This is scary shit, hands down. I mean, let's rewind the clock back about a decade, right? Obama in the White House, and in his infinite wisdom, enters the Iran nuclear deal, where we, the United States, we're going to aid the largest funder of international terrorism, aid them in acquiring nuclear capabilities, and pay them oodles of cash so long as they pinky swore not to make bombs with it. Who could have seen that being a bad idea? Who could have seen Biden ending the sanctions on Iranian oil that Trump put into place and then resuming nuclear talks with the Iranians? Who could have seen that ending badly? And it is going to end badly. You know, while all of us back home are just a little bit distracted with the crises that the Biden administration has caused through and through, right? While we're distracted with that, Israel doesn't have that luxury. Israel doesn't have that luxury, right? The Israel Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, came out and spoke about that and what Israel's position is on this whole debacle right now. He had some choice words to say the least.
Over the past few years, Iran has made a major leap forward in its nuclear R&D, its production capacity, its enrichment. Iran's nuclear weapon program is at a critical point. All red lines have been crossed, inspections ignored, all wishful thinking proven false. Iran is currently violating the IAEA's safeguard agreements, and it's getting away with it. They harass inspectors and sabotage their investigations, and they're getting away with it. They enrich uranium to the level of 60%, which is only one step short of weapons-grade material, and they're getting away with it. Evidence which clearly proves Iran's intentions for nuclear weapons in secret sites in Turkuzabad, Tehran, and Marivan is ignored. Iran's nuclear program has hit a watershed moment, and so has our tolerance. Words do not stop centrifuges from spinning. There are those in the world who seem to view Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons as an inevitable reality, as a done deal, or they've just become tired of hearing about it. Israel doesn't have that privilege. We cannot tire. We will not tire. Israel will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon.
No, there may be some who see that as a bluff, right? Maybe a hollow threat. I certainly don't. I mean, if the conflict between Israel and Hamas earlier this year proved anything, it's that Israel is, for starters, strategically and tactically very proficient, very capable, and that they've also proven that they will go the distance that they need to strategically eliminate their enemies by whatever means possible, right? And also minimize the collateral damage as well, because again, they were very, very proficient going after Hamas and ensuring that civilian casualties were kept at a minimum. They went after their enemies hardcore, but they did it minimizing casualties as best they could. In a lot of ways that a lot of other militaries would not have, absolutely. So, but when they make this kind of statement against Iran, yeah, I don't think it's a bluff. I don't think they're going to be holding anything back because they know that they can't. Iran does not want Israel to exist. Israel knows that, and it doesn't have the luxuries that we do of being distracted or burying our heads in the sand about this sort of thing. They do not have that luxury. They know that, and they're saying they're going to go the distance here, and I believe them 100%. But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, when it comes to the U.S., the powers that be right now, the people running things, are, for the most part, anti-Semites or people who just don't like Israel, generally speaking, and don't want it to exist, right? Because when Rashida Tlaib can go out there and say that the Holocaust gives her a calming effect.
And there's a kind of a calming feeling I always tell folks when I think of the Holocaust and the tragedy of the Holocaust and the fact that it was my ancestors, Palestinians, who lost their land and some lost their lives, their livelihood, the human dignity, their existence in many ways have been wiped out on some people's passport. I mean, just all of it was in the name of trying to create a safe haven for Jews.
When AOC can go out there and cry because the U.S. continues to fund Israel's Iron Dome defense system. A defense system, the Iron Dome, a purely defensive tool that shoots rockets out of the skies as they're being fired against you, right? It does not fire rockets back at your enemies. It is a purely defensive tool developed by the U.S. and Israel, which we have been funding for a long time, right? When she gets out there and cries and all the other members of the squad vote against that, these are people who do not want Israel to defend itself. And what reason could you possibly have for that? Even when Hamas, in an unprovoked act of aggression, fires thousands of rockets in highly populated civilian areas of Israel, in an unprovoked act of aggression, right? What possible reason could you have for not wanting Israel to defend itself? It's because you do not want Israel to exist. These people detest Israel. They're anti-Semites through and through. Right? You have one of the greatest anti-Semites of all, Ilhan Omar, right? The incestuous incestuous United States representative going out there and just laying out all of these ridiculous slurs and heinous accusations against Israel, ethnic genocide and crimes against humanity. Give me a freaking break. So if and when Israel launches an attack against Iran to prevent, even if it's just to prevent them from having nuclear weapons that they would use against Israel and against us, let's not kid ourselves about that either. You don't think that the powers that be would use that as fuel to, I don't know, maybe cut off support entirely to Israel? Hell, maybe even use that as an excuse to aid Iran in putting the pieces back together. Maybe even give them funding, give them aid. Hell, I think that's probably a likely outcome. I think by the end of the year, that's exactly what we're going to see. We're going to see Iran get closer and closer to building a nuclear bomb. We're going to see Israel smack them, bitch slap them silly in response to that. And then we're going to see our government turn on our allies. Israel is an ally. We're going to turn on our allies and start openly supporting Iran. Again, the greatest funder of international terrorism in the freaking world. That's my prediction that we're going to see by the end of the year. And if I'm wrong, please call me out in the comments section. Hold me accountable, absolutely, 100%. I honest to God, hope that I'm wrong, right? If Christmas comes and this hasn't happened, that'll be a Christmas miracle as far as I'm concerned. I would like nothing better than to be wrong on this 150%. I really would. Yeah, this is scary stuff. We are in some dark times right now. And given the leadership in our damn country, it's not likely to brighten up anytime soon. But God, all I can say is thank God for Israel at this point, because if it wasn't for them, I like I said, I genuinely believe that they're going to do something. But if they didn't do something, I find it extraordinarily unlikely that we right now, our country as it is, with the leadership that it has and the military leadership that it has, the joke of military leadership that it has, I don't think that we would do anything to prevent that. I genuinely don't see that happening. Not with people like Mark Milley running the damn military. Not with people like brain-dead people like Joe Biden running the country. I do not see that. Good God. So, in any event, moving on. Other generally terrible news. One of the most egregious and outright terrible things that I've ever seen happen to an American serviceman happened this week to Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. Now, you might remember him as the guy who made the headlines in recent weeks, calling out military leadership, demanding that they take some form of accountability for the Afghanistan debacle, demand that they take some form of accountability for, abandoning Bagram Air Base, getting 13 Marines killed and hundreds of others wounded, abandoning an untold number of American citizens, thousands of American green card holders, tens of thousands of Afghan allies, leaving them to die in a godforsaken wasteland. That guy, he's been arrested. He's in military prison right now. Apparently, military higher-ups weren't exactly happy that he had the audacity to request that they be held to some level of accountability. So they put a gag order on him that basically said that he's to keep his mouth shut and not post any more social media videos of that nature. And he knew that he was probably going to get arrested for doing it again, and he did it anyways. He spoke out anyways. All right, people talk about bravery, right? Right? When that dipshit singer came out with that song, was it last year, the Commander-in-Chief bashing Donald Trump, right? Right? She was hailed as being brave, right? There's a few requirements for bravery. One of them is that there actually has to be some risk associated to what you're doing. Stuart Scheller here, he is brave. He is brave. He knew that there was some risk associated to speaking out, to speaking up, and to demanding that the morons and the cowards who are failing upwards in our military leadership right now, who are responsible for the blood of American lives and Afghan allies' lives, right? He knew that speaking out against them, demanding that they be held accountable, even if only slightly, that held some risk, and he did it anyways because it was the right thing to do. And they threw him into the fricking brig for it. His parents, sat down with Tucker Carlson recently, and they were talking about the incidents. Here's that video.
No one has told us what the charges are. Before I go too much further down this, I do want to say thank you to the American people, and I want to ask them to, if possible, to pray, to contact your congressman, to donate at pipehittersfoundation.com. .org, I'm sorry. And there is a tab for who they represent, and you can donate for Lieutenant Stuart Scheller, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. I'm just used to calling him Stu, of course. But there is a tab there. So many people are saying, what can we do? And we just can't get the message out. It would not have been on the Senate floor today if Americans had not spoken up.
Right.
Tucker, you asked what did he do? Probably a week or two ago, or maybe it was a week ago, they put him under a gag order. They took away his right to post, to talk on social media, to email, to text. He shared it with America, and he knew this weekend when he posted again.
And broke silence. And
he broke his silence that they were probably going to arrest him on Monday. So he is a very intelligent man. He understands what's going to happen to him. We have been, so he broke chain of command. And I said last night on a program, Tucker, his crime was speaking truth to power, and power couldn't handle it.
No.
I also said that while he broke chain of command, Austin, Miley, McKinsey, they broke the chain of trust and confidence in the American people. We're mad as hell. And I'm asking the American people to find your voice, stand up, demand accountability of your Congress people, ask for Lieutenant Scheller to be freed. In my opinion, of course, I'm dad, so it's probably not fair, but I think he should receive his pension after 17 years of fighting for this country. I think he and his family should have their health benefits and VA benefits for the rest of their lives for the sacrifices he's made. And
he needs to be out of solitary confinement in prison where he is not allowed to call anyone or to have visitors.
Honest to God, it just breaks your heart. It really does. It's just all kinds of awful. This whole situation is just utterly, utterly, utterly despicable. But I highly encourage you to do as Lieutenant Colonel Scheller's parents asked. Definitely call your congressperson if you can. If you're able and you're willing and you want to make a donation, we're going to post a link in the description to this video. To the site that his parents had mentioned, the pipehitterfoundation.org, because God knows that his family right now, they need all the help that you can get, 100%. But in slightly uplifting news, in reference to military leadership being held accountable, Matt Gaetz pulled aside General Mark Milley and Secretary Austin recently and pulled down their pants and proceeded to spank them in a rather empowering video. It was actually great to watch. Here's part of that right now.
You spent more time with Bob Woodward on this book than you spent analyzing the very likely prospect that the Afghanistan government was going to fall immediately to the Taliban, didn't you?
Not even close, Congressman.
Oh, really? Because you said right after Kabul fell that no one could have anticipated the immediate fall of the Ghani government. When did you become aware that Joe Biden tried to get Ghani to lie about the conditions in Afghanistan? He did that in July. Did you know that right away?
I'm not aware of what President Biden...
You're not aware of the phone call that Biden had with Ghani where he said, whether it is true or not, we want you to go out there and paint a rosy picture of what's going on in Afghanistan. You're the chief military advisor to the president. You said that the Taliban was not going to defeat the government of Afghanistan militarily, which, by the way, they cut through them like a hot knife through butter. And then the president tries to get Ghani to lie when people in the military, like Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, stand up and demand accountability, when they say that you all screwed up, when they point out that General Milley's statement that that the government of Afghanistan is not going to get defeated by the Taliban, well, he ends up in the Brig. And you all end up in front of us, and your former employer, Raytheon, ends up with a lot of money, and we have poured cash and blood and credibility into a Ghani government that was a mirage. It fell immediately. And while the guy sitting next to you was off, talking to Phil Rucker and was off doing his thing with Bob Woodward, we were buying into the big lie. But if we didn't have a president that was so addled, you all would be fired. Because that is what you deserve. You have let down the people who wear the uniform in my district and all around this country, and you're far more interested in what your perception is and how people think about you in insider Washington books than you care about winning, which this group is incapable of doing.
At least somebody is giving it to those guys up the ass, at least a little bit. I mean, honest to God, we should be seeing a lot more videos like this. We should be seeing a lot more state representatives doing this. This is exactly what we need to see. We need to see these guys held accountable, all right? Because the reality is that they're a bunch of cowards who stood by and either kept their mouths shut or made their suggestions and then kept their mouths shut after the fact, while Biden unilaterally decided to abandon a war we were winning and leave our people behind to die, right? And got 13 U.S. Marines killed. Right? A entirely preventable situation. These guys stood by and did nothing. They should resign or be fired at the very least. And Mark Milley, you want to factor in that call to China where he called them up and said that he was going to let them know ahead of time if we were planning on launching an attack while he was working for Trump? As far as I'm concerned, he should be prosecuted for treason, right? To go ahead and call up the enemy and say, I'm going to give you a heads up when we attack. How is that not treason? How is that not treason? I mean, honest to God, that guy is just a despicable, despicable worm. Absolutely. So yeah, that video was rather invigorating to see Matt Gaetz call him out like that and just, like I said, just spank his ass. It was just awesome. But in any event, moving on. Now, we have some societal updates for you. Will Smith has come out recently and revealed that he and his wife, Jada Pinkett-Smith, are in an open marriage, and that is the highest definition of love. No, I know some of you out there might not be able to really understand the highly intellectual and extremely educated ramblings of our societal elites in Hollywood better, so I'll just break this reveal down for you in layman's terms. Will Smith reveals this week that he and his wife are adultering dirtbags who have decided to save their marriage by sleeping with other people. Now, I know that sexuality, sex, and sexual morality, right? These are conversations that can be uncomfortable to have. People don't want to really talk about that sort of thing and be forced to question the morality of their actions. But let's get real about something, right? Marriage, right? True love, that has some requirements. First and foremost, it requires you loving another person more than you love yourself. And marriage requires you making a commitment to that other person before God, before them, before your friends and your family. A commitment in which you put someone else's needs and wants ahead of your own. An open marriage is a complete contradiction to all of that, right? It's not about the other person. It's about you. It's about what makes you feel good. It's about sleeping with other people, not because that's what's good for your marriage or that's what's good for your wife. It's because it's what's good for you, right? It's about using somebody else to make yourself feel good. That's what sexual immorality is at the end of the day. Sex in its truest form is meant to unite two people together, give and take, and focusing on somebody else's needs, wants, pleasures, that sort of thing, right? Instead of yourself. Selfish sexual immorality, like open marriages, again, spits in the face of real commitment and real love. And so for Will Smith to go out there and say that this is the highest definition of love, he's right in a sense. It is the highest definition of self-love that there is, and nothing more. Yeah, I guess it is a little sad to see a once extraordinarily talented actor who's since decided to give up on acting, come out and just make this sort of announcement. Though, I mean, if you look at his kids, it wasn't unpredictable to find out that he's not a very good person. I mean, but in any event, that's one societal update for you. Another one is the Gabby Petito case. Now, if you've been following the Gabby Petito case, you'd know that Gabby Petito was a YouTube influencer with a small following who went missing and then was found dead recently, and whose boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, also went missing, presumably on the run from police. He has a warrant out for his arrest. He's suspected in her killing. I haven't really covered that case at all for a few reasons. Namely, I've never been a fan of the sensationalism that gets wrapped up in these highly profiled murder cases. You know, everyone tuning into the TV to try and see what the new update is. It's like it stops like this Bonnie and Clyde mentality, or the soap opera, mentality. It turns this whole awful, tragic, horrible thing into this media frenzy and this giant spectacle, and like it stops. It's like it stops being real for people following along with it. I think that we should recognize the tragedy of the loss of a young person's life. It's always a tragedy when somebody's cut down in their prime like that. But I don't think that we should be idolizing or remembering somebody just for their death. And that's what the sensationalism of it all does, is it makes us forget about her life, about her good works, about the other good things that she should be remembered for. I know if I died, I wouldn't want to be remembered for my death. I'd want to be remembered for what I did when I was still here. And I think, I didn't know Gabby Petito, I don't know her family, but I would hope that and trust that she probably wouldn't want to be remembered for her death either. Nevertheless, interesting development in that. Dog the Bounty Hunter has announced that he's on the case, and that he's potentially found the track to Brian Laundrie, to finding this guy, to finding out where he's hid. And he found a campsite recently, freshly used campsite where he believes Brian Laundrie was, and he's on the case, I guess, which is really amusing. I remember growing up watching this guy on TV, I'm the dog, the big bad dog, the bounty hunter. And the whole show was just ridiculous, his whole show that he had and everything. But I mean, like, how great would it be, right? The FBI is on the case right now, looking for this guy, looking for Brian Laundrie. How great would it be if they got showed up by like a 70-year-old bounty hunter, bodybuilding bounty hunter, who's been wearing the same outfit for the last 20 years and has had the same horrible haircut for the last 40 years, if they got showed up by that. I mean, the FBI, what does that stand for again? Famous but incompetent? I mean, they'd kind of have to be if they got showed up by this guy, but it really would be a cool thing. I mean, like, people talk about, Tiger King, like Netflix maybe turning the TV show Tiger King into a movie and getting Nick Cage to play the lead guy. I mean, let's forget about that, right? If Dog the Bounty Hunter catches this guy and shows up everybody, that should be made into a Netflix movie. I'd love to see Nicolas Cage playing Dog the Bounty Hunter. I'm gonna find Brian Laundrie, man, and when I do, I'm gonna take his face off. I mean, that'd be freaking wild. Speaking about movies, though, I was actually on a movie set this week, back on Wednesday. I had kind of a blink and you'll miss it kind of role as an undercover cop in a movie called Paradise City. But that was actually pretty cool. That was a pretty fun day. And check this out. Guess who that bald guy is way in the back of the photo there? You guess who that is? It's this guy, John Travolta. It was actually, I got to meet him. It was actually pretty cool. I was able to catch him just after he finished up filming a scene and snapped a picture. He was really nice about it. And everybody who I talked to on set who had been working with John Travolta said that he's just a really nice guy and really good about, taking photos with fans. And I am guilty of that. I am guilty of being a John Travolta fan. I mean, you had Grease, you had Pulp Fiction, you had Look Who's Talking, Get Shorty, Civil Action, Phenomenon, Michael, Broken Arrow. You know, he's had a lot of good movies. He's also had a lot of not so great movies, but I mean, you know, when you've been acting as long as he has, you know, you're bound to do some stinkers. Either way, I do believe that this movie, Paradise City, is more than likely going to be a stinker, sadly, just because it's a Bruce Willis film. Bruce Willis is going to be playing a mercenary in this film, going after John Travolta, who plays a crime boss. And, you know, let's be honest, Bruce Willis has not given a crap about acting probably since the last Die Hard movie. I would much rather have an unknown who gives a crap about the project and is willing to actually put in the effort to act than somebody who has name recognition and clearly does not give a shit. I mean, honest to God, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm an actor and I care about storytelling and I care about doing the best you can at your job, and I just don't understand this mentality of people like that who show up just to collect a paycheck and don't even bother. They cheapen the whole product when they do that. It's a huge, and as far as I'm concerned, it's an enormous disrespect to the other people who show up on set and put in the effort. Bruce Willis is just kind of a shithead at this point in life. But it was really cool getting to meet John Travolta. It was really cool getting to be on set and everything, and check that out. But if you hate yourself and want to check out this movie and see if you can spot me in it, I'll be wearing a Hawaiian shirt with the badge around my neck. Maybe you can catch me in it. Paradise City, whenever that ends up coming out. But with that in mind, this wraps up our societal updates for the day. Moving on.
They sure work hard, don't they, Barney?
Yeah? I hate to see them work so hard.
Yeah, me too. Let's go around back where we can't see them.
Gee, we ought to do something, Fred.
Okay. How's about taking a nap?
I got a better idea. Let's take a Winston break.
That's it! Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend.
Yeah, Fred. Filter blend makes the big taste difference, and only Winston has it up front where it counts. Here, ahead of the pure white filter. Winston packs rich tobaccos specially selected and specially processed for good flavor in filter smoking.
Yeah, Barney, Winston tastes good, like a cigarette should.
The Flintstones has been brought to you by Winston, America's best-selling, best-tasting filter cigarette.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
You know, nothing quite gives me the get up and go that I need, quite like the SJW infuriating, racially insensitive and sexist commercials from yesteryear. You know, that is the stuff that makes the world just go around. Gotta love it. But in any event, moving on with the news. So, the border crisis. You might remember, if you're older than a week, that we had 30,000 migrants crossing into Del Rio recently, and then the camp was emptied out by the Biden administration, and the Biden administration lied about how many were coming into the country and how many that they were dispersing. Turns out that they were shipping a lot of those illegal migrants all over the country, which is great. But it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Because the foreign minister of Panama spoke out recently to Axios and said that she not only gave the Biden administration a heads up about these migrants that were headed to Texas, but that there's more on the way. Again, this comes by way of Axios. Mayono said that there are as many as 60,000 migrants, mostly Haitian, posed to make their way north to the U.S.-Mexico border, saying, let's recognize that they are all heading toward the U.S., Mayono said in calling for the Biden administration to help deal with this crisis. We've engaged with every single authority that we can think of that we can come across to say, please, let's pay attention to this. So you know the 30,000 that we had at the border recently? So let's try doubling that. And let's also bear in mind that apparently 1 in 5 of those migrants tested positive for COVID. Okay, so we now have double the 30,000 on their way. Potentially 1 in 5 again testing positive from COVID. Not very good during a so-called pandemic, wouldn't you say? So what is the Biden administration doing to help prepare us for this? What are they doing? Well, apparently the Department of Homeland Security is threatening to terminate major portions of Border Patrol agents if they're not vaccinated, right? Because we can't just have unvaccinated Border Patrol agents going down there and preventing illegals from entering into the country who are testing positive for COVID or would test positive if we were actually testing them. No, right? Okay, well, Biden administration's no doubt going to let these illegal immigrants into the country as well, just like they did last time, right? Well, it might be good if we had some, hospital staff to work with, right? So what are the hospitals doing to help prepare for the incoming migration of 60,000 migrants who are more than likely going to test positive for COVID? What are they doing? Oh, nice. So North Carolina hospital system is set to fire 175 employees over the vaccine mandate, right? Also nice, sweet. So the airlines, right? United Airlines, they're set to fire another 600 employees over the vaccine mandate. And Delta Airlines, what are they doing? Oh, they're going to increase the cost of health insurance to all unvaccinated workers by an additional $200 per month. We are doing so damn good. We're doing so damn good right now, right? You know, I'm old enough to remember that when I went into urgent care a few weeks ago, for those of you who've been watching the show, you know I tested positive for COVID recently. I'm old enough to remember sitting down with the doctor in urgent care who scolded me for not being vaccinated, right? Saying that even after testing positive for COVID, that once I'm better, I need to get the vaccine, right? Because there are nurses on strike right now who are tired of dealing with unvaccinated patients, right? And we have an emergency worker shortage right now, right? If I don't get vaccinated, these nurses could quit, and then that would be on me. If there's really a shortage, why the hell are hospitals firing emergency workers, nurses, doctors? Why are they doing that, right? Does that make any sense to you? Does it make any sense to you? Or does it just seem like these morons are creating the situation that they're bitching about and then pointing their fingers at literally everyone other than themselves in order to explain how this could happen? It's like walking into a bank, shooting the security guard, and then saying, man, there's no security around here. How the hell did that happen? I mean, give me a freaking break. Are you out of your damn minds? What the hell? What the hell? This whole thing is just so upside down and backwards. It gets under my skin every freaking time. Honest to God. Freaking A. You know, and it doesn't really end there. It doesn't really end there. In regards to that tyrannical vaccine mandate that Biden announced recently, right, where OSHA was going to fine businesses with more than 100 employees $14,000 per instance of violation. You might remember that. Well, I mean, there are people like Ben Shapiro who have theorized that all of this, the whole vaccine mandate, that it's just meant to be a distraction from Afghanistan, to pull people's attention away from Afghanistan, which I could kind of see. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Biden, how do I put this delicately? Well, he's a total idiot. Yeah, I mean, I could totally see him trying to distract people from an oil fire that he started by starting another oil fire. I mean, I could see that, right? But freaking A, it doesn't end there. No, because this $3.5 trillion bill being voted on this week, right? It turns out that the Democrats have snuck in a provision regarding the OSHA fines, right? And it gets worse. It gets much worse. According to Forbes, buried on page 168 of the Democrats' 2,465-page mega bill is a 10-fold increase in fines for employers that, quote-unquote, willfully and repeatedly or even seriously violate a section of labor law that deals with hazards, death, or serious physical harm to their employees. Meaning that if this passes, the fines will have gone up from $14,000 to $70,000 for serious infractions and $700,000 for willful or repeated violations. Now, here's the thing. This bill, it's looking now like it's not going to pass, and thank God for that. I mean, Joe Manchin just came out and called it fiscal insanity. He doesn't look like he's going to vote for it, and the Democrats need all the Democrats. That's Joe Manchin, that's Kristen Sinema, coming out and supporting the sucker. I don't think that they're going to do that. I hope to God that they don't do that, and I hope to God that there's no turncoats in the frickin' Republican Party who would ever vote for this bill whatsoever. So it doesn't really look like it is going to work out for the Democrats in this instance, but here's the thing. The Democrats didn't know that when they snuck in this provision. And if this is just meant to be a distraction from Afghanistan, then what? This isn't them doubling down on it. This is them tripling, quadrupling down on it. All right? Right? The Democrats oftentimes are they're like a shitty car salesman. When they pitch you a policy and they talk about the cost, they give you a low ballpark figure, right? About what it is. And then as soon as you turn your back, they steal your wallet and it ends up costing 100 times more than what they actually said, right? They just came out and said that, right, that these trillions of dollars that they want to spend will cost virtually nothing, right? Because that's how that works, right? It's like somebody asks you for a $100 bill, you give them a $100 bill, and then they set it on fire right in front of your face, and they said, "Oh, look at that! It costs nothing." It's like, what the hell are you talking about? I just gave you $100. No, you didn't. Look, there's nothing here. There's nothing in my hand anymore. It's gone. It didn't cost anything. I mean, apparently that's how economics works at the end of the day, all right? Right? So they're doing it again. Joe Biden goes out and says this will only, these penalties will be $14,000. Meanwhile, as soon as you turn your back, they're ramping it up from $70,000 to $700,000. This just went from Joe Biden saying to every business and individual out there who doesn't bend the knee, who doesn't get in line, that I'm going to hit you with a stick. It just went from that to the entire Democratic Party saying that if you don't bend the knee and get in line, we're not going to hit you with a stick. We're going to chop off your freaking head. This provision is designed to bankrupt and destroy any business, flat out, who doesn't get in line. And I said this in the video that I put up in response to Joe Biden's absolutely disgusting, absolutely tyrannical announcement of the vaccine mandate. I said this. I think that this is a good thing. Let me explain. I think this is a good thing because it effectively ensures, this is the Democrats, what it's them doing is taking the middle ground away. There is no more standing on the sidelines anymore. Everyone is now forced to pick a side. And we've picked our side. You, me, anybody watching this right now, we picked our side. And a lot of other people are going to be forced to pick their sides too. But the thing is that what this really is at the end of the day, is the Democrats thinking that they're going to crush our resolve, that they're going to scare us into compliance, that they're going to force us to bend the knee. But what they don't get is that our resolve is never going to be crushed. It can't be. It won't be. Right? Because beating in the hearts of every God-fearing American man and woman is that flame of freedom that was ignited almost 250 years ago. That was sparked by those precious documents that laid the foundation for our country. It was written by great men. Great men. We hold our heads up high when we go about our day because we know that we are sons and we are daughters of Washington, of Franklin, of Adams, of Jefferson. We know that we follow in the footsteps of the giants of history, from Lincoln to Dr. King, and that like those men, we too have a dream, and that we are not going to give up on that dream. We will suffer for that dream, we will endure for that dream, and we will fight for that dream until it is realized. And that's something that the far left does not have. The far left's fire in their hearts, it's fueled only by themselves, and only by the love for themselves. All right? And as sure as they are cowards, when the wolves come knocking on their door, they will cave into themselves and they will crumble beneath that pedestal, that hollow pedestal that they've been standing on for so damn long. And that is why they are going to lose. That is something that the Democrats do not understand. You cannot break our resolve. And actions like this, tyrannical actions like this, meant to scare people into subjugation, It is not going to weaken our resolve. It is going to strengthen it. And that is why I think it's a good thing. That is why I think getting rid of the middle ground is almost necessary to push the people in the middle into standing up for themselves, into standing up for their families, into standing up for their states, to standing up for their country, into standing up for the principles that keep them going every damn day. That's why I think it's a good thing. You know, for our last little piece of news, this isn't really new news. You might have noticed the video of the two Arizona State students, the two girls who kicked out two other male students from a multicultural center because of the color of their skin. I put up the video earlier this week. You probably saw it. Here's a quick snippet of it.
You're making this space uncomfortable. But you're white. Do you understand what a multicultural space? It means you're not being centered. This white man thinks he can take up our space, and this is why we need a multicultural space, because they think they can get away with this shit.
You know, like I said, I'll be perfectly honest with you. You know, the situation calls for it. I'm really tired of talking about race first and foremost, and it feels like I've been doing a lot about that since covering, since starting the show. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just being tired of it. You know, I wrote this book, Rockers Creek. You know, I joke about it sometimes, you know, but there's like about 100,000 words in this book, and I can't think of any that really just sum up just how unbelievably disheartening it is and how much it rips me up inside to look back on the first half of my life, right? About the first 16 years or so, and look back on it all nostalgically. Not because I'm like longing for my youth or anything. I'm only 25 years old. You know, I'm still plenty young. But to look back on it nostalgically simply because race never factored in to any of it. You know, I mean, I went to public school. I went to the Boys and Girls Club after school. I went to summer camp. You know, I met and was friends with people from all walks of life, right? I had white friends, I had Hispanic friends, I had black friends, I had a couple Middle Eastern friends and Asian friends, right? I met kids who were Catholics, who were Baptists, who were agnostics, who were atheists, who were Muslims, right? But none of that mattered. You know, I think about middle school and showing up before class every single day and getting down on the soccer field and meeting up with the guys to play football before school started. And, you know, when you get on that field, it was never like, oh, there's my Hispanic friend. Oh, there's my black friend. Oh, there's my Muslim friend, my Middle Eastern friend. No. It was just, there's Isaiah. There's Sean. There's Felix. There's Keegan. There's the guys, you know? And that was right. It was the way the world was supposed to be. And, you know, I can't, and to look back on all of that nostalgically and to look back on these last few years and to get to watch society get twisted into this freaking voice that just shouts at you and beats you down and batters you and forces you to look back on all of that and to admit and to acknowledge that it was all a lie. That it was all a lie. That to everyone on that damn field, that everyone on that damn soccer field in the mornings, that for everyone there, it was color first. And that if you didn't see that, it was because you were the bad guy. It's because you were the monster and you were hurting those people. You were hurting your friends. I can't describe just how much it tears me up inside to see videos like that and to see society get twisted into this thing and to look back on it all and recognize that growing up, we all took it for granted. Right? It was the way the world was supposed to be. It was right, but we took it for granted. And I'll be honest, we took it for granted because we didn't think it was something that you could take for granted. We didn't think it was something that we could lose. Here we are. Right? People getting kicked out of buildings because of the color of their skin all over again. is just like Rosa Parks. It's just like the freaking 60s. And these are the Jim Crow members, the new members of Jim Crow. Hands down. This is what we're headed for. And it kills me. It kills me to feel like everything that I've known all my life, to feel like the world is telling me that it was all bullshit. That none of it was real. And I know that it was. I know it was right. And I know it was the way the world was supposed to be. And I didn't think it was something that I could lose. And I didn't think it was something that my kids could lose before they were even born. You know, it makes me wonder what else we could lose that we didn't think we could lose. What other freedoms could we lose that we didn't think we could take for granted? The reality is all of them are up for grabs. Unless we do something about it. And you know, I've talked about the need to resist, the need to speak up, the need to get involved in the fight, for all of us to do our part together. I've talked about that a lot. But you know, I was kind of browsing YouTube the other day, and the suggested videos list was a speech I hadn't seen in a while. But you might remember from last week, I had mentioned that Charlton Heston was somebody who I greatly admired. And he gave, in 1999, 20 years ago, he gave perhaps, I think, one of the single greatest speeches in modern American history. In 1999, he saw what was coming, and he predicted it, and he was right. He was right on the nose. But he also talked about how to fight back against that, how to resist, what you needed to do. And I know in my heart that he was right about that too. We posted the speech this week, and if you get the chance to check out the full thing, I highly encourage you to do so. But since I can't think of the words, really, I just wanted to end today's episode with Charlton Heston giving you the words for me about what you need to do if you want your kids to have what they don't have today, what society is stripping from them before they're even born, and what it's taking from you today. I want you to just ponder on that a little bit, to ponder on these words, and to know that I still believe. I still believe in hope. And I still believe that we can come back and that we can win this thing. But it's going to take all of us. So here it is.
But what can you do? How can anyone prevail against such pervasive social subjugation? Well, the answer's been here all along. I learned it 36 years ago on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., standing with Dr. Martin Luther King and 200,000 people. You simply disobey. Peaceably, yes. Respectfully, of course. Nonviolently, absolutely. But when told how to think or what to say or how to behave, we don't. We disobey. Social protocol that stifles and stigmatizes personal freedom. I learned the awesome power of disobedience from Dr. King, who learned it from Gandhi and Thoreau and Jesus and every other great man who led those in the right against those with the might. Disobedience is in our DNA. We feel innate kinship with that disobedient spirit that tossed tea into Boston Harbor, that sent Thoreau to jail, that refused to sit in the back of the bus, that protested the war in Vietnam. In that same spirit, I'm asking you to disavow cultural correctness with massive disobedience of rogue authority, social directives, and onerous laws that weaken personal freedom. But be careful, it hurts. Disobedience demands that you put yourself at risk. Dr. King stood in lots of balconies. You must be willing to be humiliated, to endure the modern-day equivalent of the police dogs in Montgomery and the water cannons at Selma. You must be willing to experience discomfort. Now, I'm not complaining, but my own decades of social activism have left their mark on me. I'll never be offered another film by Warner Brothers or get a good review from Time magazine, but disobedience means you have to be willing to act, not just talk. When a mugger sues his elderly victim for defending herself, jam the switchboard at the district attorney's office. When your university is pressured to lower standards until 80% of the students graduate with honors, choke the halls of the Board of Regents. When an 8-year-old boy pecks a girl's cheek in the playground and then gets called into court for sexual harassment, march on that school and block its doorways. When someone you elected is seduced by political power and betrays you, petition them, oust them, banish them. When Time magazine's cover portrays millennium nuts as deranged, crazy Christians holding a cross, as it did last month, boycott their magazine and the products it advertises. So that this nation may long endure, I urge you to follow in the hallowed footsteps of the great disobediences of history that freed exiles, founded religions, defeated tyrants, and yes, in the hands of an aroused rabble in arms and a few great men, by God's grace, built this country. If Dr. King were here, I think he would agree. I thank you.
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed today's episode, please support us on Venmo, PayPal. The Woke is Broke podcast is a crowd-funded operation, and we need all the help that we can get. And as such, we certainly promise to never, ever embezzle your money, unless we are absolutely sure that we can get away with it. We'll catch you next time.